Welcome to the Metrics That Matter podcast, hosted by Adeeb Valiulla. Today, we're diving deep into, well, a pretty significant shift in how we think about engineering leadership.
That's right.
Forget relying on just a gut feeling or, simple speed metrics like velocity.
hmm
The name of the game now seems to be proving real impact. And this is all happening in an environment shaped by economic pressures, the rapid evolution of AI, increasingly complex systems.
And a huge push for hyper-efficiency. It's a perfect storm,
It
really.
really is.
So, in this deep dive, we're going to explore how leading engineering teams today requires moving beyond just, shipping fast.
Hmm.
That's not enough anymore.
Right.
We'll look at gaining genuine clarity into the work, what's really going on.
True.
Understanding the complete picture of engineering contributions, not just code output. Embracing efficiency as a growth engine, actually, not just a cost cutter.
Interesting distinction.
And crucially, safeguarding space for the kind of creative engineering that drives true innovation. A lot of that comes down to automating away the repetitive stuff.
Makes sense.
For everyone listening, this is really about grasping how engineering teams can effectively demonstrate their value today and successfully navigate all these complexities we're seeing.
Okay, let's unpack this first part then. The shift to clarity. For years, it felt like a strong leader with good instincts, maybe someone who'd been a great engineer themselves, could steer the ship.
Right, that was the model.
But it sounds like relying solely on that intuition now is, well, becoming a real liability.
It really is. I mean, in today's intricate environment, leading purely on gut feeling alone, it's sort of like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. You might get lucky, but probably not.
Ah, good analogy.
What's absolutely essential now is clarity. Crystal clear understanding of exactly what your teams are working on, where the roadblocks are popping up, and crucially, how their time is actually being spent.
So it's not enough to just, rely on the daily stand-up updates or gut checks. We need something tangible.
Exactly. Stand-ups are useful, but they don't give you the full objective picture. Instead of operating on assumptions or, frankly, just hoping for the best, clarity provides a true snapshot of reality.
Okay.
With that clarity, you can pinpoint the real bottlenecks holding things back. You can understand why those pull requests might be aging, getting stuck in review for days or weeks.
Uh-huh.
And you get an accurate assessment of team capacity. Is a team genuinely overcommitted and heading for burnout? Or are they actually running smoothly, just maybe working on complex stuff?
So it replaces opinions with insight.
Precisely. It replaces guesswork and opinions with insights grounded in actual data about what's happening.
All right, this is where it gets really interesting for me. We've heard about velocity forever, right? Story points, release cadence.
The classics.
Yeah. What are the limitations there? It feels like they've been the standard for so long, but you're saying they don't tell the full story.
They really don't. Those traditional output metrics, they offer only a very narrow view. They primarily tell you that what features were shipped, but they often completely miss the crucial how and why. They don't account for the effort that goes into, say, real innovation or the struggle involved in managing increasingly complex systems.
Right, the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Exactly. Or the actual value delivered, especially when teams are navigating unexpected problems or uncertainty.
Yeah.
Think about it. A team might churn out a lot of story points.
This looks good on paper.
Looks great. But if those features aren't actually driving business value, or maybe they're riddled with technical debt that's going to bite you later, are they truly successful? The velocity metric alone won't tell you that.
That's a really powerful point. So if those traditional metrics are incomplete, what should leaders be looking at to get that more comprehensive understanding? What makes up the full story?
Well, a more holistic perspective involves understanding how engineering time is actually allocated. How much effort is going into just keeping the lights on.
KTLO, yeah.
Right, the essential maintenance, the operational tasks. Then, how much time is dedicated to building brand new features? And importantly, how much is invested in improving existing systems, paying down tech debt, improving stability, scalability.
So breaking down the type of work.
Yes. And beyond that, we need to track the entire life cycle of an idea, from the moment it's conceived to the moment it's actually delivering value in production. So looking at metrics like lead time for changes, pull request cycle time. How long does it really take to get things done?
It's about seeing the whole journey, like you said, not just the finish line.
Exactly. And then there's the planning and execution aspect.
Yeah.
How effectively are teams planning their work? How well do they execute against those plans?
Yeah.
How do they adapt when things inevitably change?
Like scope creep.
Scope creep is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, things like commit-to-done ratios, basically. How well does a team predict what they can deliver in a sprint or cycle, and do they actually deliver it? That gives you insight into predictability. But perhaps the most critical piece, tying it all together, is connecting all these engineering activities back to tangible business outcomes. That's the broader narrative.
Not just we closed X tickets.
No, it's we improved customer retention by Y% by fixing these stability issues, or we increased conversion rates by launching this feature, and here's how long it took from idea to impact. That's the story stakeholders, the CFO, CPO, CEO need to hear and understand.
Right, translating engineering effort into business language.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's pivot slightly. We've talked about understanding the work, but the whole context has shifted too, hasn't it? Economically, technologically, there's this relentless pressure now to do more with less. The era of just hiring more engineers to solve problems feels over.
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial observation. We've definitely moved away from an environment where, hypergrowth often justified hiring almost at all costs.
Throw bodies at the problem.
Kind of, yeah. Now we're in an era where efficiency isn't just nice to have. It's absolutely essential. The mandate now, pretty much everywhere, is to achieve more significant impact, often with the same or even fewer resources, to move faster with leaner teams.
And the focus has shifted.
Decisively. It's shifted from just showcasing activity, look how busy we are, to rigorously proving the actual impact of that activity on the business.
And you mentioned earlier, you see this not just as a challenge, but actually as an opportunity for engineering leaders. How so?
Yeah, I really do, because by strategically embracing this focus on efficiency, engineering leaders gain a powerful lever. It gives them the opportunity to truly quantify their team's capacity and output in meaningful business-relevant terms.
Okay.
They can make much more informed decisions about where to allocate their precious resources. They can strategically align engineering efforts with the most important business objectives. And they get clear visibility into which investments, which initiatives are actually yielding the greatest returns.
So, data to back up decisions.
Exactly. It provides the data to identify teams that might be genuinely overloaded and at risk, to pinpoint areas where maybe technical debt is really starting to drag down progress, and crucially, to unequivocally demonstrate which initiatives are driving measurable business value.
So, important clarification. This isn't about just cracking the whip and demanding everyone work harder or longer hours.
Absolutely not. That's a common misconception. It's really about enabling smarter work practices. It's about streamlining development processes, removing friction, and ultimately leading with greater strategic precision.
Making sure the effort counts.
Precisely. The goal is ensuring that the effort being invested is directed towards the activities that will generate the most significant positive impact for the business. It's about focus and effectiveness.
This seems to lead naturally into the next point, which is protecting creative engineering time. Because if engineers are constantly bogged down in process friction, manual reporting, endless meetings, where does the space for real innovation come from?
You've nailed it. That's the core tension. True engineering breakthroughs, the kind of innovation that can really differentiate a business, they don't just emerge magically from a constant cycle of urgent bug fixes and administrative overhead.
Right.
Innovation requires clarity of thought, it requires sustained focus, and it requires dedicated blocks of time for deep work, for exploration, for building. And all those routine, often low-value tasks can significantly erode that crucial creative space.
So how can having better data, better clarity, actually help protect that valuable time? It seems almost counterintuitive. More data might mean more reporting.
But it's about automating the collection and reporting of that data. When you have readily accessible and reliable data flowing from your engineering systems, it can automate away a huge chunk of that mundane, repetitive work.
Like status updates.
Exactly. Imagine engineers not having to manually compile status reports every week or every sprint. The information is just there, updated in real time, available for anyone who needs it. Sprint reports become self-serve dashboards.
Freeing engineers from being report generators.
Precisely. They're freed up from having to constantly track down and synthesize information just to tell people what they did.
Yeah.
And crucially, when you can clearly and easily demonstrate the impact of your team's core work using this data,
Oh, okay, I see where you're going.
it becomes much easier to justify carving out dedicated time for those more strategic, more innovative initiatives. You can make a data-backed case for it.
That makes perfect sense. If you can prove the value of the day-to-day work efficiently, you have more credibility and leverage to argue for dedicated innovation time, like hackathons or R&D spikes.
Exactly right. This protected time enables those vital activities, internal hackathons, focused R&D spikes to explore new tech, creative sprints. These are the things that often drive significant future value.
Yeah.
And honestly, they keep engineers engaged, motivated, feeling a real sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And let's face it, in an increasingly automated world where AI is taking over more routine tasks, that human creativity, that ingenuity, it remains an incredibly valuable, maybe the most valuable and irreplaceable asset. We need to protect it.
It really sounds like this whole evolution in leadership thinking, clarity, impact, efficiency, has a very direct and hopefully positive impact on the developers themselves, on their day-to-day experience, their well-being.
Oh, absolutely. It's deeply connected. Think about developer burnout. It often isn't solely about, a messy code base, although that can contribute.
Sure.
But frequently, it stems from more systemic issues within the development process itself. Things like when developers lack a clear understanding of why they're building something, how their specific contribution fits into the bigger picture.
Feeling like a cog in the machine.
Exactly. Or when they're constantly burdened by excessive administrative tasks, chasing approvals, dealing with unnecessary process friction, or when they face frustratingly long delays and critical feedback loops like waiting days for a code review. That stuff is soul-destroying.
Yeah, it really kills momentum and morale.
It absolutely does. So providing this clarity on impact, focusing on streamlining the workflow, creating faster feedback loops, reducing that friction, it directly benefits the developers on a personal level.
How so, specifically?
Well, by giving them clarity on the impact of their work, they see the value they're creating. By ensuring faster, more reliable feedback cycles like quicker code reviews, you reduce frustration and context switching. By reducing the friction in their daily tasks, you free up their time and mental energy.
So they can focus on the interesting problems.
Right. And giving them that clearer sense of focus and purpose, it all adds up to a stronger sense of ownership, accomplishment, and frankly, job satisfaction.
And for the leaders, what are the benefits for them in terms of team health?
For leaders, this translates into fewer unwelcome surprises or crises because you have better visibility. It generally leads to improved employee retention because developers feel valued and are less frustrated. And it makes for much more productive and meaningful one-on-one conversations because you can talk about impact and growth based on actual data, not just feelings.
Okay, so to try and wrap this all up, it really sounds like the fundamental evolution of engineering leadership we're discussing today is this big shift. Moving away from relying primarily on intuition and maybe some basic output metrics towards a much more data-informed, impact-driven approach, and crucially, one that seems to benefit both the business and the engineering team itself.
That's an excellent summary. I think that's exactly it. It's about embracing clarity, really understanding the complete scope and nature of engineering work. It's about strategically prioritizing efficiency, not just to cut costs, but actually to drive growth and capacity.
Right.
It's about actively safeguarding that precious time for creative problem solving and innovation. And ultimately, it's about cultivating a more positive, more productive, and genuinely more fulfilling experience for the entire engineering organization. It's a win-win when done right.
This has been a really insightful deep dive. Thank you. It really makes you think. These principles we've discussed, clarity, measuring true impact, focusing on efficiency, protecting creative work, they aren't just limited to engineering, are they?
Not at all.
You could apply them really to almost any field where creating value and achieving meaningful outcomes needs to be demonstrably proven, especially in today's environment. Something for our listeners to definitely mull over.